Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I've been looking at the comments section of my videos, and again, this the Creek Freedmen video just keeps getting the comments and the comments and the comments. And the problem is, there's other videos I post on the subject. They're not getting the same comments. I wish they would. I wish these individuals would look at my Creek Treaty of 1866 video, which breaks down very clearly what happened in that treaty. Now, if you've not read the actual text of the treaty, and I guarantee a lot of these individuals are not bothering to do that. I got one person citing the 14th Amendment as proof, I guess, that somehow, like, we're supposed to take in the freedmen into our tribe. It's like the 14th Amendment has nothing to do with citizenship in an Indian tribe. It has to do with citizenship in the United States. Not all Indian nations were considered U.S. citizens at the time. It wasn't until the 20th century that many of these tribes actually became U.S. citizens. That's really because they had to dissolve the Indian nations. There was a time where they basically briefly dissolved Creek Nation, and then our people were like, no, we want to be a tribe. We want to actually be a nation. But then they started appointing chiefs for us at that point. We couldn't choose our own until the 1970s. Once we restructured our nation and decided who's actually a part of our tribe and who's not, and doing democratic elections, well, then we really became our own tribe again. Okay. Meanwhile, you got, the freedmen that got kicked out because by and large, aren't really Indians. I say by and large because some have Indian blood. And again, I think that those who do should be able to get citizenship. But again, like, we're dealing with, the final Dawes rule and all the complications of that. I've mentioned in the past, what does it really mean to be Indian? I mean, it means that we're here before whites or blacks showed up, or Asians. Okay, like, we're the indigenous inhabitants of this country. That is who we are. And our legacy is that. And I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to continue working on the numbers as far as how many, slaves were brought over in the Trail of Tears, how many were brought over before the Trail of Tears in the 1828 migration. I want to find out who really suffered the way that we suffered. But even that doesn't actually mean that you're Indian. It doesn't mean that you have the same legacy, that as much as was taken from us was taken from you. It just does not mean that. So I'm sorry to anyone in the Creek Freedmen Association or any adherent to that. I mean, you got to be realistic and honest about this. And I'm going to be realistic and honest too. I'm going to be blunt. There's a lot of freedmen that just want the money and want the medical benefits. It's not about being accepted and being recognized, and people say that, but let's be real about that. There's financial kickbacks for being a member of an Indian tribe, even if it simply means you get your medical bills paid for to an extent. That's still money that's not coming out of your pocket. I get it. But and in the past, there were per capita payments, and I also heard from one person, 11 years ago, who worked for Creek Nation, that if you have a quarter blood or more, you can get per capita payments. It's kind of a hush-hush thing, as far as I understand it. Of course, I've yet to verify it outside of this person, and I will not cite this person's name, out of respect. Even though this is the same person that told me that white blood is poison. He's still an elder. I'm going to respect him. Okay, I still like him as a person beyond his racist comment. Okay, because I believe you can still do that. You can still be friends with people that offend you. To a certain degree, obviously. But I mentioned the Treaty of 1866, a video that not enough people watched apparently, and because I'm not getting comments in that video, really, not so much. And I mean, look, I have ancestors that were, I believe, politically allied with the Confederacy, and I've definitely got ancestors that were loyal Creeks. I have two that were listed as refugees, two male ancestors, and I have one male ancestor that was listed as a soldier. And so, this faction of the tribe originally were the ones that fought against the U.S. government in the War of 1812. And then later on said, okay, we're not doing this anymore. We're not going to ever fight the United States anymore. And Apathilehola led us, during the 1836 removal to Indian Territory, later to be known as Oklahoma. He also led our people to Kansas because during the Civil War, he did not want to fight his brothers who had joined the Confederacy. I'm not saying his actual siblings, I mean fellow Creeks. There's like half or more of the tribe had sided with the Confederacy. And then the others were like, no, we don't really want to do that. But we can't stay here anymore because there's going to be war happening. So federal government promised, promised help. Go to Kansas. Okay, 2 skirmishes later, 3 skirmishes later, we get there. 2 of which we won, 1 of which we lost, including the death of babies and their mothers. It's pretty terrible stuff. I'm going to do a video on that in the future. But what happens with the Treaty of 1866? Oh, to punish the Confederate Creeks, half of Creek Nation is taken away. Lands are to be given to other Indians and to freedmen. And that's, I would assume this is freedmen outside of Creek Nation, because within Creek Nation, you had freedmen that were given lands in Creek Nation during the allotment. You had per capita payments that were being given after the Civil War. I've seen documents where people were complaining they weren't getting their payments because of their African ancestry. And then, documentation that they then received payment. So this is a thing that was going on. You had citizenship and ultimately medical that, definitely would have been the case prior to the restructuring of the tribe in the late 70s. But, early 70s too. I mean, we, I think it was 72, I believe, when we were able to do democratic elections again. And we redid our Constitution and all that stuff. So anyways, this is important information, but you got people that just don't care about the rights of actual natives. They just say, no, the treaty made us Indians, therefore we're Indians, and you need to recognize that, or no other treaty recognized after that is valid. None of it's valid unless you make us citizens of the tribe. It's like, okay, let's talk about that treaty again. Let's revisit that. So half the lands of Creek Nation were taken from the Creek Nation, and from some of the sale of that land, the federal government planned to pay off the loyal Creeks who were robbed, killed, and whatnot during the Civil War. It took until the 1950s before my great-grandma finally got the final payment for losses of these 3 ancestors I mentioned during the Civil War. That's almost 100 years later. What happened during that 100 years? Oh, that's right. Freedmen got land. Freedom, which I believe freedom should have been granted. I don't believe in slavery. But so freedom, land, per capita payments, forced citizenship in our tribe. I'm sure medical during that time. There's benefits, like I said, of being a part of an Indian tribe. And they got to enjoy those benefits during that time. I think this absolves us of any obligation to having owned their ancestors. I'm sorry, but I think it does. Final laws, gave them, the land allotment gave them lands that were ours within the boundaries of Creek Nation. So I just don't think that trying to rile up the likes of Maxine Waters to try to take away funding that's justifiably given to our tribe is a justified act. I think it's an act of hatred and animosity towards us as Indians. I think it's a different form of racism, to be honest. And I think it's culture theft. I think it's a form of theft. And I don't believe it should be happening. And so, yeah, look, Creek Nation has not caved into the pressure from Maxine Waters and others, and then the Creek Freedmen Association. And I hope that Creek Nation does not, forgive me for stuttering, I hope the Creek Nation does not cave in. We have a tendency not to cave in easily on things. We have a tendency to stick together as a tribe. And I hope that we do that. And I hope that we don't cave in. Because I don't want the likes of Maxine Waters to force us to do that which we should not be doing, that which is not in the best interest of our people. If we decide we want the Creek Freedmen to come back, that needs to be our decision. Not yours, federal government or Freedmen Association or Maxine Waters. It is not your say-so, or anyone in the comment section who's a freedman who does not have Creek Indian blood. Okay, it's not your call. It's not yours. It's our call. And it needs to be our call. And I want to make this point that I made in the comments of that one video. If you force this upon us, you're going to have our animosity. We're not going to be happy with you. That's not going to make you our friend. It's not going to make us your friend. And eventually, this will come back to bite you again. What happens if in the future we once again say, okay, well, we got a different president now, and we're kicking the freedmen back out. We only caved in because Maxine Waters was trying to steal our money that we needed to take care of our people. That's the only reason we did it. You know, I mean, that would pretty much be the answer. And now that she's no longer a threat, we're kicking the freedmen back out. That can happen. And yeah, it would definitely not look good. It would be bad optics on us, you know, but at the same time, we'd be justified because it is our decision. And that other decision that hasn't been made yet would be a decision forced upon us by the likes of Maxine Waters, okay, by the likes of the Freedmen Association, if they get enough support from the federal government, which I hope they do not. So Indian tribes need to have the sovereignty, the right to decide who is and who is not a citizen of their tribe. I'm sorry, the federal government needs to stay out of that. Now, I mean, granted, I don't think that, you know, adopting Russians or Ukrainians or Chinese or other, you know, or Zimbabweans or whoever into the tribe and making them Indian, you know, I don't think that should be happening either. You know, I don't think we should just say, oh, we're going to pad our rolls with a bunch of other people that are not Indian. But I also don't think that the government should be able to tell us that we have to do that. Because after a while, what happens? Our culture stops being ours. Now, it's not that we can't share culture. I'm not saying that people shouldn't be able to participate in our culture, you know, but what happens when they run our government? What happens when non-Indians are running an Indian government? What happens when they start to overpopulate and you know, and we Indians are actually underpopulated in our own tribe and are not properly represented in our own government? You see, that's also the fear. That's another reason why bringing the freedmen back in is not something that we want to do, because the demands are unrealistic. I'm not a quarter blood. I can't even run for office. Only full citizens can do that. And yet you have the freedmen demanding full citizenship. So, you know, I mean, think about that for a second. And I get why they want to have people with quarter blood or more as the chief, because they want to make sure that you have Indians that look Indian, who look more Indian, I should say. I do have features, but I've also got lighter skin. But they want people who look more Indian running the government, running the tribe, and kind of being the face, if you will, of Creek Nation. I get it. Not that really mattered, you know, 200 years ago, because it didn't. It really didn't. But that's another story. That'll be a part of my video on why full blood is a myth, or full bloods are a myth. I mean, there's people today that say they're full blood, but they're not really full blood. They just think they are because the paperwork says they are, and because, you know, their family tells them they are, but it's not really true. So, anyways, but yeah, I feel like we need to be able to have, that needs to be our decision. And any threats to bring the federal government into this decision, to force our hand, is going to create problems. Why would you want to be part of an Indian tribe that doesn't want you? Think about that for a second. Why would you want to be part of an Indian tribe that you don't actually belong to by blood? Like, you don't share the same blood. Unless it's money. And that's what everybody thinks. And I know there's some that say that's not the case, but I mean, for many that is the case. I've seen interviews, news interviews on YouTube from local, you know, media stations who, you know, where people are like, oh yeah, I want to get my college money. I could totally benefit from this. So yeah, I want to be a citizen of, you know, Cherokee Nation or whatever, you know, whichever of the 5 civilized tribes they were talking about. But that's the thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I know you have young people today who don't know the history of what's going on, but they need to become aware of the history of what's going on. And this information needs to go viral. People need to educate themselves on this, because the only people that really know about the Creek Treaty of 1866, by and large, are the Freedmen Association. Most Creek Nation citizens have never heard of it. They don't really know what's going on, and that's unfortunate, because they need to know how they got robbed, how we got robbed by that treaty. So we don't allow that to be a backdrop in us deciding to bring them back in. Okay, if we want to bring them back in, there needs to be other reasons other than the Treaty of 1866, which was unfairly put upon us. I'm sorry, but it was. It did not benefit all of us. It benefited very few of us, actually, and it benefited the freemen a lot. So think about that. Anyways, guys, I'm going to end the video for now. I'm going to start my day, and I'll talk to you later. I'm going to go for watching.